Hey folks, tonight's journey isn't going to be comfortable. Not emotionally, not physically, and definitely not hygienically. We're going to take a little trip back to the early 20th century, a time of patriotism, pestilence, and poor decisions made in muddy holes. You've heard of World War I. Maybe you slept through that part in school. No worries. You'll get a second chance to sleep through it tonight. But first, let me paint you a picture of what it actually meant to be an American soldier in the Great War. Spoiler, you wouldn't make it. Not a day, not an hour, depending on where you land. You'd cry, probably bleed, maybe both. So before we dive into the horror show, do the usual. Tap like if you actually enjoy the weird historical nightmares I read to you at 2 a.m, and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from. It's always weirdly comforting to know that somewhere out there, someone's trying to fall asleep while I describe trench foot and mustard gas. Now dim the lights, maybe crack a window if you're feeling brave. Settle into your clean sheets, your climate-controlled room, and your indoor plumbing. Because that all goes away now. Take a breath. Because your lungs are about to get introduced to France, and not the pretty parts. Welcome to 1917. You've just been drafted. The war has been raging for years without you. But now, lucky you, you've been invited to join the party. Pack your optimism, say goodbye to comfort, and prepare to be yelled at by a guy with a moustache named something like Sarge. This isn't a story about glory. It's about mud, boredom, terror, and why you'd absolutely crumble under all of it. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, let's get you conscripted. You're not a soldier. Not yet. You're just some guy. Maybe you work in a factory. Maybe you sell shoes. Maybe you dig ditches and curse the sun. Either way, you've got a routine. A boring, probably soul-sucking routine, but at least it's predictable. You wake up, you eat something that passes for breakfast, you go to work, you complain about work, you go home, you sleep, you repeat. And then one day, the letter comes. It's not fancy. Just your name printed awkwardly, like it's been shoved through a typewriter by someone with something against consonants. You open it. Inside, instructions. You've been selected. The government wants you. Not your opinion, not your dreams, not your bad back or your weak knees, just your body, preferably alive. The Selective Service Act of 1917 doesn't care if you were planning a wedding or trying to get a raise. It just cares that you're a male between the ages of 21 and 30. That's it. That's your golden ticket to the front lines. Congratulations. You report to the local draft board, trying to act casual while your stomach is doing Olympic-level gymnastics. The office smells like old paper, sweat, and cheap ink. There's a guy at a desk who doesn't look like he's smiled since McKinley was president. He checks your name off a list, points to a hallway, and that's it. You're on a conveyor belt now. You get poked, prodded, weighed, and inspected. A doctor taps your knee with a little hammer and grunts. Another guy checks your teeth like you're a horse. No one asks how you feel about any of this. Feelings are not part of the enlistment process. If you've got all your limbs and don't faint during the exam, you're in. Maybe you thought you had flat feet or bad eyesight or asthma. Too bad. The army has a generous definition of fit to serve. And if you're wondering whether you could fake something and get out of it, you're already too late. Thousands of other men had the same idea. A guy in line 2 spots ahead of you coughed dramatically and claimed he had weak lungs. He is now in the same line as you, headed for basic training. You're handed a slip of paper and told when to show up for departure. Your future has been decided by men in suits who've never been shot at. You go home. Your family says they're proud, but they also look like they're trying not to throw up. Your mother hugs you too long. Your father claps you on the shoulder like he's trying to drive a nail through it. Your younger sibling stares at you like you're already gone. You pack your things? Not much. The army will give you what you need. Uniform, boots, rifle, misery. Departure day comes with grey skies and that sinking feeling in your gut that doesn't go away even when the train starts moving. You're surrounded by other draftees, none of whom look excited. Some try to crack jokes. They fall flat. Others sit silently, staring out the window like maybe they'll see their old life waving goodbye. You eat a sandwich that tastes like anxiety and white bread. No one tells you where you're going exactly. Just camp. Which sounds relaxing until you realise it's short for training camp, and not the kind with marshmallows or lakes. When you arrive, it's chaos. Shouting men, dust everywhere, trucks backfiring, and a sergeant who looks like he was born angry. He doesn't speak, he barks. Every sentence ends in your name, except he doesn't bother to learn it. You are now private, followed by a combination of grunts and whatever insult he feels like using that day. You're herded into a barracks with 50 other guys, each with the same 1,000-yard stare you've started developing. The beds are metal frames with mattresses that feel like padded cinder blocks. You get a locker and a vague sense of dread until your first uniform doesn't fit. It's itchy, the colour of despair, and smells like it was stitched together in a sweatshop operated by moths. The boots are stiff enough to kill a man if thrown with intent. There's no instruction manual. You learn by doing, and by doing, that means being screamed at while running through mud. Everything is mud. The field, the trail, your dreams. If you're not running, you're crawling. If you're not crawling, you're cleaning your rifle. If you're not cleaning your rifle, you're getting yelled at for not cleaning it fast enough. They teach you how to shoot. Not well, not with grace, just with enough accuracy to hit something vaguely enemy-shaped. They hand you a rifle that weighs more than your sense of self-worth and show you how to reload it without jamming it into your eye socket. They drill you on formations, battlefield discipline, hand signals, bayonet charges. The bayonet is especially grim, because if you're using it, it means the bullets have stopped and now you have to get personal. Meals are an experience. If you like boiled grey mystery, you're in for a treat. Everything tastes like it's been cooked with spite and reheated in a trash can lid. Coffee is hot, bitter, and somehow still not strong enough to keep you awake through the exhaustion. You eat fast, because if you don't, someone else will. There's no such thing as leisurely dining. It's shovel, chew, survive. At night, you try to sleep. The lights go out early, but your brain doesn't. It's too busy wondering what the hell you're doing here. There's always someone snoring like they're trying to excavate their own lungs. Someone else whispers prayers. Another guy just cries quietly. You stare at the ceiling and hope it rains tomorrow. Because rain means the obstacle course might get cancelled. You start rooting for weather like a farmer, except instead of crops, you're growing calluses. Weeks pass, you lose weight, gain muscle, your skin hardens. So does your ability to care about anything outside the routine. You can now disassemble and reassemble your rifle with your eyes closed. You can run 5 miles with a full pack and only hate yourself halfway through. You stop flinching when the sergeant yells. Not because you've grown braver, but because your body's too tired to react anymore. Numbness sets in like an old friend. One day you get a new set of orders. You're shipping out. Overseas. The real war. You don't know where exactly, just that there's a boat waiting. And on the other side of that ocean, there are trenches and mud and explosions and other men with rifles who've been trying not to die for years already. You're joining late, but no one expects you to catch up. Just to keep your head down and do what you're told. You write one last letter home. You lie a little. You say you're excited. You say the food's not bad. You say training is tough, but you're getting through it. You don't mention the nightmares. You don't mention how a guy 2 bunks over stopped talking last week after the captain described mustard gas. You fold the letter, seal it, and drop it in the outbox. It might make it home. It might not. Then you line up with your unit. The sergeant yells. The train is waiting, and so is the ship. You board, surrounded by men who look just like you. Tired, quiet, trying to look braver than they feel. You find your bunk below deck. It smells like oil and seawater and mildew. The engines start, the floor vibrates. You're moving now. Not just geographically, but into the part of your life you won't talk about later. The journey to the front has begun. You're not in Kansas anymore. You're in uniform. You're government property. You're a soldier now. Ready or not. You wake up before the sun. Not because you chose to, but because someone kicked your cot and yelled something that sounded like English run through a meat grinder. The room is cold, smells like damp socks and army-issued regrets, and you're still half dreaming about home when someone screams again. You don't know what they said, but you assume it means get up or die. You get up. Your uniform is still damp from yesterday's sweat, and your boots are somehow both stiff and soaking. You put them on anyway. The laces feel like they're made from leftover barbed wire. You try to stand. Your knees argue. Your back files a formal complaint. You shuffle outside with the rest of your unit. No one talks. The air is too thick with sleep deprivation and dread. The sergeant appears. You don't know where he sleeps, or if he does. He looks like he was carved from gravel and anger. He has a whistle that he uses like punctuation. Everything he says ends in a shrill, metallic scream that makes you question your life choices. He shouts your names, or attempts to. You don't bother correcting him. At this point, you're just a shape in the mud with a serial number. Then it begins. Marching, running, crawling, repeating. You don't know where you're going or why. You just follow the boots in front of you and pray your ankles keep up. The mud is everywhere. It's not normal mud. It's a sentient, soul-crushing ooze that clings to everything and somehow gets inside your socks, even though they're inside your boots. It smells like wet metal and failure. You get yelled at for not running fast enough. You get yelled at for running too fast. You get yelled at for not yelling loud enough when they yell at you. Your lungs aren't ready for this. Neither is your spirit. It's not about speed. It's about breaking you down into something the army can rebuild, preferably into someone who doesn't flinch at explosions or question commands. You're not a person here. You're a potential asset with a heartbeat. Push-ups come next. Not the gym kind, the humiliating, face in the mud, full body tremble kind. You do them until your arms collapse. Then they tell you to do more. You try. You fail. The sergeant doesn't care. He tells you to dig a trench. You don't ask why. You just start digging. Your hands blister. Your shovel hits rocks. You keep digging. It's not about the trench. It's about obedience. Meal breaks are barely breaks. They give you something called slop in a tin. It's grey, smells like industrial glue, and tastes worse than it looks. You eat all of it because you're starving. Then they make you run again. You regret everything. Your stomach sloshes with regret. Someone throws up. The sergeant calls it motivation. Classroom instruction exists, sort of. You sit on wooden benches while a bored lieutenant lectures you about formations, tactics, and enemy weapons. The room smells like sweat and chalk. You try to pay attention, but your eyelids are staging a protest. You snap awake just in time to hear the words, gas mask drills. Great. Gas mask training is a delight. You're handed a rubber mask that smells like old tyres and fear. You're told you have seconds to put it on, or die choking. You try it. You fail. You try again. You almost pass out from panic and the lack of oxygen. The instructor tells you to get used to it. You don't. Bayonet practice is next. They give you a rifle with a giant knife attached and tell you to stab a sack of straw like it insulted your mother. You do. It feels wrong. The straw doesn't fight back. A real person will. That thought sits in your brain like a splinter. You ignore it because you're not supposed to think. You're supposed to follow orders. Then comes obstacle courses. Walls to climb, ropes to swing, barbed wire to crawl under. You do it all while someone screams at you from 6 inches away. You slip. You bleed. You keep moving. The mud is deeper here. One guy loses his boot, keeps running without it. Another guy breaks a finger, tapes it to the next one and keeps going. Pain is expected. Complaining is a punishable offence. You write home once a week. If you're lucky, the letter gets through. You don't say what it's really like. You write things like, training is going well, and I'm learning a lot. You don't mention that one guy passed out and no one stopped to help. You don't say that you're scared, that your dreams are getting darker, that sometimes you forget what day it is. You keep it light. Mum doesn't need to know what you're becoming. Every now and then you get a break, not rest. Just a break from being yelled at long enough to wash your socks in a rusty bucket and eat something that resembles meat. You stare into the distance like you've been to war already. You haven't. This is just the preview. Your body starts to change. You're leaner now, not healthier. Just stripped down to what the army needs. You don't flinch when the sergeant screams anymore. You just react. Automatically. Like a dog that's been trained with a shock collar. You wake up before the whistle. You make your bed without thinking. You can shave in 30 seconds flat with cold water and a blade duller than your mood. Occasionally someone breaks, they cry, they run, they get caught. Nobody talks about them after that. You learn to keep your head down, your mouth shut, and your feet moving. The ones who last are the ones who adapt, or the ones too numb to care anymore. You're not sure which one you are. Training doesn't end with a ceremony, it just stops. One morning they hand you new papers and tell you to pack. You're not done learning, you're just done here. Your next education happens somewhere with bullets. The sergeant doesn't say goodbye. He tells you not to embarrass him. Then he walks away. You board another train, this time with a full kit and a rifle that still smells like gun oil and apprehension. No one talks much. You've all said everything that needed saying weeks ago. Outside the window, the world passes by. Trees, towns, people who still have normal lives. You stare at them like they're animals in a zoo. The civilian world feels foreign now. You don't know what you're heading into, but you know it's worse than what you've left. And you just spent the last 6 weeks learning how to survive hell in slow motion. The train stops near a port city. You're not told exactly where. Doesn't matter. The smell tells you enough. Salt water, diesel fuel, fish, and far too many bodies in one place. You get off with your unit and join the endless line of men waiting to board a ship that will take you to Europe. It looms in the harbour like a rusty promise. Technically, it's a troop transport. Realistically, it's a floating warehouse with lifeboats that look like decorations. You're handed a tag with your number and your bunk assignment. You climb up the gangway with your pack digging into your shoulders and the growing realisation that the ground is about to vanish under you. The ship groans under its own weight. You enter the belly of it, duck your head past bulkheads, and find your bunk. It's not a bunk, it's a metal shelf. There are 4 others above and below it, all jammed together like someone stacked coffin drawers. You toss your gear in and try to convince your brain that you'll get used to this. You won't. The engines rumble to life, and just like that, you're moving. The coast fades. There's no cheering, no band. Just a slow drift into grey water and a horizon you'll get sick of long before you see land again. The trip is supposed to take about 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks of motion, stink, noise, and the ever-present threat of being torpedoed. You learn quickly that the ocean does not like you. It doesn't matter if you've got a strong stomach. The Atlantic has a way of reaching into your core and shaking things loose. It starts with a little sway, then a lurch. Then someone next to you throws up on their boots, and the smell is contagious. You hold it in. For now, the food doesn't help. Everything is canned, recanned, or vaguely tan. Stew that tastes like damp cardboard. Bread that's more weapon than nourishment. Coffee that's half ground and half desperation. You eat because you have to, not because you want to, and sometimes not even then. Most guys are just trying to keep anything down. The ship moves in constant rhythm. Up, down, sideways, then all directions at once. The walls creak like they're thinking about giving up. Bathrooms? There are latrines, if you can call them that. Basically metal troughs that leak and reek. The line to use them is long. The stench is longer. You go in, you come out, you question your choices. Showering is rare. Water's rationed. So is space. So is dignity. After a few days, everyone smells the same. Like damp wool, old sweat, and stomach acid. There's not much to do on board. You can't walk far without hitting a wall or a person. You play cards with guys you barely know. You read the same paragraph of a worn-out book 12 times before giving up. Some guys sing, badly. Others sleep as much as they can, trying to skip time like it's a bad chapter. You write letters you might not get to send. You stare at the ceiling. You worry, but only when you have the energy. Then you hear the word, U-boat. Whispers, at first, then warnings. German submarines are hunting these waters. You're not told exactly where, just that they're out there, somewhere. The ship starts zigzagging every few hours. It's called a defensive pattern. You call it nausea squared. Every change in direction throws your balance off, like someone rearranged gravity just to mess with you. There are drills, lifeboat procedures. What to do when, not if, you're hit. You practice putting on your life vest, which looks like 2 stuffed sausages strapped to your chest. You're told to jump feet first if it comes to that. Keep your boots on. Swim away from the ship. Try not to inhale oil or catch fire. Good tips, not comforting ones. Some nights you swear you hear something. A thud, a splash, Maybe it's just the waves, maybe not. One night, sirens go off. Everyone jolts awake, boots hit the deck. You scramble topside, life vest in hand, heart punching your ribs. The sky is black, the ship's lights are off. Silent running, they call it. 20 minutes, you stand there, cold, wet, waiting for the sound of an explosion. It never comes. You go back below, but sleep doesn't. The officers try to keep everyone calm. They fail. One guy starts making peace with God out loud. Another carves his initials into the wood frame of his bunk, like he wants the ship to remember him in case he doesn't make it. No one talks about it in the morning, but everyone packs their gear a little tighter. By day 8, the novelty is gone. You've memorised the ship, the hallways, the sounds, the boredom. You're part of a big grey herd, all waiting for the other shoe to drop. You've stopped changing clothes. What's the point? You sleep in your uniform because if you have to abandon ship in the middle of the night, you don't want to do it in your underpants. The ship feels less like transportation and more like purgatory. On the 12th day, someone yells, "Land!" You rush topside. There it is, Europe. Or at least the outer edge of it. It's grey, wet, ugly, perfect. You could cry. You don't. The harbour is lined with ships, cranes and soldiers who look like they haven't smiled in 3 years. The water is calm now, but your legs are shaking. Land sickness. Turns out, after nearly 2 weeks of endless motion, solid ground feels like it's still swaying. You stumble off the boat with a pack, a rifle, and the stomach of a man who has spent the last 12 days marinating in his own nerves. The air smells different here. Smoke, coal, horses, war. You're processed again. Roll call, supplies, briefings. You're told not to wander off, like that's even a tempting idea. You're herded into trains, trucks, whatever's available. You're not at the front yet, but you're close enough to feel it in your teeth. Someone says, "Welcome to France." It doesn't feel like a welcome. It feels like the part of the story where things get worse. You don't know it yet, but you're less than 50 miles from the front, and by tomorrow night, you'll be closer than you ever wanted to be. You're in a truck now, one of several, packed with men, gear, and that familiar smell of fear barely masked by sweat and cigarettes. The roads aren't roads, they're suggestions, ruts and gravel and potholes that could qualify as small lakes. Every bump sends your spine into your skull. No one complains. Complaining takes effort, and effort is in short supply. The closer you get, the quieter it gets. Not silence, just the kind of quiet people make when they're trying to pretend they're not thinking about dying. You pass shattered trees, abandoned fields, and towns that look like God stepped on them. Burnt out buildings, crumbling walls, windows blown out like the houses were surprised to see the war up close. The sky is grey, because of course it is. Clouds hang low, heavy with the promise of rain or something worse. Artillery booms in the distance. It's not close enough to panic you, just close enough to make your skin hum. You look at the guy across from you. His hands are shaking. You don't mention it, because yours are too. Then the truck stops. The sergeant yells, and everyone stumbles off like cattle unsure if they're heading into a barn or a slaughterhouse. You walk. Boots crunch mud, then sink into it, then disappear into something deeper, colder, wetter. You're shown a trench. Not like in the training diagrams. This one's real. Alive, in the worst way. Breathing rot and disease and the ghost of someone who didn't get out of it. The trench is a long ditch, cut into the earth like someone tried to hide from the sky and gave up halfway. Wooden planks line the bottom, sort of. Some are missing. Most are loose. The mud doesn't care. It slurps over your boots, tries to climb your legs. The walls are held up by sandbags and prayer. They bulge in places, sag in others. Nothing about this place feels stable. This is home now. You're led to a dugout, essentially a cave hacked into the side of the trench and lined with timber and regret. It smells like mildew, wet socks, and the last breath of a dozen unwashed men. You get a cot. Not clean, not dry, not whole. Just a piece of canvas stretched over a frame, and somehow colder than the air around it. You try to settle in. You can't. You can't even sit without your knee knocking into someone else's gear or ribs. There's no space. There's no privacy. There's just damp fabric, the slow drip of water from above, and the realization that everything you own will be wet forever. Bathroom? That's a generous word. If you're lucky, there's a latrine trench nearby. Just a shallow pit with some planks over it, and the worst smell you've ever encountered. If you're not lucky, it's just a bucket. A communal one. Behind a tarp. If anyone remembered to hang one. You learn to go fast, keep your mouth shut, and breathe through your sleeve. Eventually, the rain starts. Because of course it does. It seeps through your uniform, down your neck, into your socks. The trench starts to fill. The walls drip. The floor becomes a shallow river. Your boots suck at every step, like they're trying to eat your feet. Trench foot becomes more than a warning. It's a guarantee. You strip your socks, rub your feet, try to dry them. It's pointless. You might as well be trying to towel off the ocean. There are rats. Of course there are rats. Big ones. Fat from feasting on corpses and forgotten rations. They aren't scared of you. You're just another warm body in their long buffet line. You wake up to one chewing the corner of your blanket. You swat it. It hisses. You both stare at each other for a moment. It doesn't leave. Eventually you do. Night falls. Not that it changes much. The sky just turns darker grey. Everything stays wet, cold, loud. Sleep comes in short bursts, if at all. You drift off only to be woken by shouting, or footsteps, or the ever-present artillery. You get used to being tired. Sleep stops being rest. It becomes hiding. You're put on watch. That means standing in a corner of the trench with your rifle, trying to keep your eyes open while your body begs for sleep. You watch no man's land, the space between your trench and theirs. It looks empty. It's not. It's a graveyard with ambition. Mud, wire, craters, and the occasional body no one retrieved. Some of them move, most don't. You're told not to poke your head up. You learn why quickly. A guy 3 slots down from you does, and the next sound is a crack like a bone snapping, followed by a splash. You don't look. You just go back to watching. They say the enemy is close, but you never see them. Just hear them. Shovels in the distance. Voices carried by the wind. Sometimes laughter. Sometimes screams. Every now and then, flares light up the sky like a cruel sunrise. You freeze. Everyone does. Because when the flares go up, the shooting starts. The trench becomes chaos. Orders shouted, rifles loaded, bayonets fixed. You crouch low, aim into the dark, and pray you're aiming at something that deserves it. Bullets snap overhead. Dirt rains down. Someone yells that they're hit. No one moves. You can't. You wait for it to stop. Eventually it does. Silence returns, like a slap after an argument. You breathe again. You're not dead. Yet. Morning comes. Not with sunlight, but with a slightly less black sky. Breakfast is whatever's left in the can. Cold beans, stale bread. Coffee so strong it could melt a spoon if you had one. You eat fast. The rats try to join. You kick them away. They'll be back. You get orders. Dig deeper. Patch sandbags. Drain water. Fix what the night broke. Your hands are always busy. If they're not, you're doing something wrong. Or about to. You learn the layout of the trench like it's your apartment. Left turn to the latrine, right to the command post. Duck here or you'll knock your skull open on the beam someone never lowered. You stop noticing the dead smell. Eventually, everything smells like that. Mail arrives sometimes. A letter from home. Your mother misses you. Your brother got your room. Your girl's still waiting, probably. You reread it 5 times in a row, like it'll change. It doesn't. You fold it, put it in your jacket, and try not to think too hard. The days blend. Rain, cold, fear, more digging. You're told you'll rotate out soon. Back to a rest camp. They've been saying that for a week. You stop believing it. Someone gets trench fever. They start shaking. Delirious. The medic shrugs. Rest and water. There's no hospital. Just another cot in another corner of misery. If he gets worse, they'll carry him out. Or not. Sometimes rest means waiting for someone to stop breathing. Then it's your turn on patrol. You're told to climb out, cross the wire, sneak forward, watch, report. It's dark. Mud sucks at your boots like it wants to keep you. You crawl past shell holes, over bones. Something grabs your ankle. It's not alive. You keep moving. You reach the end. You see nothing. You hear something. Movement. You raise your rifle. You hold your breath. And then nothing. You crawl back. Your fingers numb. Your heart somewhere near your throat. Back in the trench, no one asks how it went. No one needs to. You're still here. That's the only answer anyone wants. This place isn't just a position. It's a coffin with a ladder. A hole you live in, barely. You stop expecting clean, or dry, or safe. You stop expecting anything. You're a soldier now. But more than that, you're a resident of the earth. Literally. Buried in it. Wrapped in its filth. And if you're lucky, you'll get out before it swallows you completely. There's no orientation guide for living in a trench. No pamphlet titled, "So You've Decided to Live in a Pit Full of Misery." You just wake up one day and realise this is it now. You don't think about going home. You think about making it to next week without your feet turning black. That's the new version of hope. The mud is constant. That's the first thing you understand. Not wet dirt. Not soft soil. Mud. A living, pulsing creature that seeps into everything you own and everything you are. Your boots fill with it. Your socks soak it up. It slides down your collar when you're not looking. You can't escape it. It doesn't dry. It just becomes part of you. If you sit down, you sink. If you lie down, you disappear. Some parts of the trench have standing water so deep you can't tell where the bottom is. Just that it's cold, probably disease-ridden, and not entirely unoccupied. Speaking of which, rats. They're not the skittering kind from back home. These ones are fat, overfed, brazen. They eat rations, crawl into packs, chew through boots. You swat at them in your sleep. Sometimes they swat back. You find teeth marks on your gear, and once, on your actual hand. The rats don't flinch anymore. They know the rules of this place better than you do. If you die, they'll know first. They go for the bodies. Everyone knows it. If someone doesn't get buried fast enough, the rats do their job. It's not poetic. It's just biology. You pretend not to see it. You stare at the mud instead. It's less disturbing The days are the same. Sky grey, air cold, hands numb. You fill sandbags. You bail water. You clean your rifle like it's the only thing keeping you tethered to something resembling control. Sometimes it is. You do inspections. Not because the officers care about discipline. They just need something to do between shellings. You stand in formation, covered in filth, getting yelled at for not polishing your buttons, even though there isn't a single clean surface for 20 miles. Every now and then, a shell lands too close. The sound isn't just loud, it invades. It gets inside your ears, your chest, your teeth. Dirt explodes around you. Sometimes someone gets hit. Sometimes they don't. It doesn't matter. Everyone flinches. Everyone adds another layer to the already thick crust of fear under their skin. You don't talk about it. You just start cleaning again, pretending your hands aren't shaking. Then there's the smell. It's always there. Rot, sweat, wet wool, piss, death. You get used to it until you leave for a few hours. Then it hits you again like a slap. You can't wash it off. You try, once. Use half your drinking water to scrub your sleeves. It doesn't work. It never works. Food is a ritual in disappointment. Some variation of meat and biscuit. Sometimes it's tinned stew that looks like it was filtered through a boot. The bread is stale. The coffee is lukewarm. You eat all of it anyway, because you don't know when the next meal will get shelled. You've learned to chew fast and drink faster. Rats sit just out of reach, waiting for you to drop a crumb. Sometimes you toss it to them on purpose, just to feel like you're in charge of something. Mail arrives randomly. A letter from home might come with the news that your cousin got married, or your friend back home dodged the draft and opened a grocery store. You read it 10 times. You memorize the handwriting. You fold it neatly and put it in your breast pocket. Then you remember what you're wearing is basically a moving sponge, and the ink starts to smear. Doesn't matter. You already know it by heart. There's a guy in your section who stopped talking. He just stares ahead, even when you say his name. Nobody pushes him. He still does what he's told. But something went out behind his eyes. Like a light bulb popped, and no one can reach the socket. The medic says he'll be fine. The medic also thinks aspirin cures everything, including trench foot, bullet wounds, and homesickness. You try to write your own letters. You tell your parents you're fine. You lie about the food. You say the officers are decent and that you're staying warm. You don't mention the lice, or that you haven't felt truly dry since the day you arrived, or that you can't stop thinking about the guy 2 trenches down who got blown apart by a mortar round, and whose helmet is still sitting on the shelf next to yours like it's waiting to be reclaimed. Sometimes you laugh. You don't mean to. Someone tells a joke so dumb you can't help it. You laugh too hard, for too long, and afterward it's quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like someone turned the world down just a little too much. The moment passes. You go back to pretending you're okay. Sleep isn't rest. It's just something your body does when it gives up. You sleep sitting up, standing, in a corner, under a coat. You wake up confused, disoriented, cold. Every nap feels like a gamble. Will it be half an hour of silence, or the start of an artillery barrage? There's no REM cycle here. Just fatigue and noise and the constant background hum of dread. Occasionally you hear someone scream in their sleep. Sometimes it's you. Nobody says anything in the morning. You all just adjust your belts, check your gear, and carry on. You stop asking questions like, "How are you?" or "What's wrong?" The answer is always the same. This place is what's wrong. You start to think about weird things, like how long it would take to dig a tunnel out, or whether anyone would notice if you just walked out of the trench and didn't come back. Not because you want to run, just to know if you're still visible to the world. You stare at your hands and try to remember what they look like, clean. Someone gets a hot meal from the rear line and talks about it for an hour. It was soup. That's it. But the way he describes it, you'd think he ate a meal cooked by angels and served on golden plates. You nod like you can taste it. You can't, but you pretend. Every once in a while, an officer shows up who looks too clean. He gives a speech. It's full of words like honour, duty, courage. You nod. Not because you believe him, but because it's easier than explaining the gap between his uniform and your reality. You don't hate him. You just want him to leave before the next shelling starts and ruins whatever optimism he's trying to sell. Then out of nowhere, orders change. You're moving. Not far. Just to another section of trench. The new one is deeper, wetter, somehow worse. But at least it's not the same. You pack your gear. You trudge. You wonder what fresh hell awaits. You find out within minutes. But that's the thing about trench life. There's always worse. Always. You didn't really notice your uniform during training. You were too busy running, sweating, or trying not to pass out. Now you notice. You notice every inch of it. The way the wool itches. The way it clings when wet, which is always. The way it sags like it's trying to escape your body out of mutual misery. They told you it was durable. They didn't say it would feel like wearing a damp horse blanket that someone smoked a pack of cigarettes into. The sleeves are always too short or too long, never just right. The buttons are stubborn. One's already missing. You're not sure when it left. Probably somewhere between the crawl through barbed wire and that time you slipped into a crater full of water and something dead. The colour is officially olive drab. Unofficially, it's just brownish depression. It doesn't hide mud. It marries it. Your trousers bunch in the wrong places. The suspenders dig into your shoulders. And no matter how you adjust your belt, it still cuts into your stomach like it's personally offended you. Which, at this point, it probably is. Then there's the great masterpiece. Your boots. They look solid. Heavy leather. Steel hobnails on the sole. Real craftsmanship, right? Wrong. They're torture devices. You wear them all day, every day, and they make sure you never forget it. The soles are like walking on wooden planks soaked in vinegar and bad luck. They don't bend, they don't give. They just hold your feet in a constant state of quiet rebellion. When it's dry, on the rare occasion that the world stops weeping long enough, they rub your heels raw. When it's wet, which is most of the time, they become portable swamps. The leather softens just enough to sag around your ankles while still managing to pinch your toes with every step. You've got blisters on top of blisters. Skin peels off in sheets. Socks? You've changed them twice in the last 2 weeks, and both times they were more whole than fabric. You've been warned about trench foot. You didn't take it seriously until you saw someone's toes turning purple. Now you take it seriously. You take your boots off once a day, rub your feet with whatever dry rag you can find, and pray. Some guys don't bother. They just let it rot. They won't say it, but you can smell it. Foot decay mixed with wool and wet leather. It's unforgettable. The laces break. You tie them in knots. Then those break too. You improvise with wire, string, even part of a fraying strap from your rucksack. The boots keep going, like they're determined to outlive you. They might. Gloves are optional. By optional, they mean unavailable. You make do with bare hands or wrap cloth around them like a mummy. Same goes for scarves, extra socks, or anything that might offer actual comfort. The army loves uniformity. And what you're wearing is uniform in the sense that everyone else is equally miserable. And that helmet. Don't forget the helmet. You hated it at first. Too tight, too heavy, always sliding forward over your eyes. Now you love it. Not because it's comfortable, because it's the only thing between your skull and a shell fragment. You sleep in it, you eat in it, you wear it during latrine duty. It's your steel umbrella against the sky's constant tantrums. Every ping of rain on the metal is a reminder that at least you're still intact, for now. None of your clothes ever truly dry. Even when it's not raining, the humidity in the trenches keeps everything damp. Your shirt clings to your back like a fungus. Your underwear, if you still have any, gave up the fight days ago. The crotch of your trousers is a war zone. Friction, moisture, grime. You don't want to look. You definitely don't want to touch. Laundry exists. Somewhere. Theoretically. There's a rotation, they say. Once a month, maybe. If the quartermaster remembers. If the lines aren't shelled. If the guy hauling the dirty uniforms doesn't get hit. Until then, you just keep layering filth on top of filth. Your skin adapts. Not by getting clean, by surrendering. You stop smelling yourself. Others don't. You used to care. About hygiene. About appearance. Now the only thing you care about is whether your boots hold up long enough to get you to the next trench without slipping into something that screams. You don't lace them properly anymore. You just wrap and tuck and hope. The time you'd spend doing it right is now used for scraping dried mud off your knees and checking for lice. Yes, lice. They love your uniform. They live in the seams, the folds, the stitches. You find them crawling on your shirt collar, biting your neck. You crush one between your fingers and 3 more show up like you summoned them. There's powder you're supposed to use. It smells like chalk and gives you a rash, but it's better than nothing. You dust your clothes with it, cough, and hope the lice find someone else more inviting. They don't. Everything you wear is a trap. Your coat makes it harder to move. Your gear digs into your shoulders. Your helmet bruises your forehead. Your pack rides too high. Your canteen leaks. Your ammo pouches sag and slap against your thighs when you run. There's no winning, only adjusting. You wonder if the enemy feels this way too. If the Germans are sitting in their own trenches right now, scratching their armpits and cursing their boots. Probably. The war doesn't play favourites. Everyone's chafed. Everyone stinks. Everyone's slowly moulding in their uniforms like vegetables in a forgotten cellar. You hear about officers in cleaner uniforms. Tailored jackets, polished boots. You've seen one once. He looked like he'd wandered into the wrong war. You kept your distance. Men like that draw fire. And resentment. What you wear isn't just uncomfortable. It's a constant reminder. You're replaceable. You're standardised. You're meat in a mould. Strip away the helmet, the jacket, the boots, and there's nothing special underneath. Just another cold body trying to keep moving. Trying not to drown in mud. Trying not to freeze to death. Trying not to get blown apart in the same clothes he was issued months ago. You dream of clean socks. Not home, not peace. Just socks. Warm, dry, cotton socks that don't smell like mildew and trench rot. It's not even a big dream, but it feels like science fiction now. You settle into your hole. Pull your coat tighter. Your boots squish when you shift your feet. You close your eyes and try not to think about the rat chewing on someone's ration tin 6 feet away. You try not to think about your uniform, or your boots, or what's living inside them. And you try not to think about the fact that tomorrow you'll be wearing the same thing, doing the same thing, in the same hell, because it's all you've got, and it hates you back. You don't eat in the trenches. You endure food. That's the best word for it. Meals are less about nourishment and more about damage control, getting enough calories to stay upright without actively poisoning yourself in the process. Sometimes you don't even get that much. The bell doesn't ring for chow. There's no mess hall. Just a vague shout passed down the trench line that food's arrived, followed by a rush of boots through the mud, like it's Black Friday at the world's worst supermarket. The cook, if you can call him that, is a corporal with a ladle and 1,000-yard eyes. He doesn't serve food. He slops it into your tin mess kit, which you've already wiped down with the cleanest rag you could find, which still smells like grease and mildew. First course, stew, or something pretending to be stew. It's greyish-brown, thicker than it should be, and smells faintly of spoiled onions and regret. You can't identify anything in it. Maybe beef, maybe horse, maybe a vegetable once, before the war started. There's a chunk that might be potato, or maybe just a boiled rock. Either way, you chew it and try not to look disappointed. Second course, hardtack. A cracker designed by demons. It's supposed to be bread, but it could be used as a structural support in construction. You have to soften it in your stew or coffee just to make a dent in it. Some guys break it with rifle butts first. You bite into it and feel your molars complain. If you're lucky, it only chips. If you're not, you're adding dental trauma to today's injury list. You eat standing up, usually. There's nowhere to sit unless you want to risk trench water seeping into places it absolutely shouldn't. You lean against the wall, trying to balance your food, your rifle, and your sanity all at once. Someone always drops their mess tin. No one helps. If it hits the mud, it's gone. That's the rule. 5-second rule doesn't apply here. More like a 5-hour infection window. Coffee, if it shows up, comes in 2 forms. Scalding or lukewarm, both tasting like someone filtered it through a sock full of ashes. You drink it anyway. It has caffeine. That makes it medicine. You gulp it down and try not to gag when you get a mouthful of grounds at the bottom. Sometimes there's corned beef. Bully beef, they call it. Comes in a tin that you open with your knife and scoop out like pet food. It's salty, fatty, and smells like meat left too long in a warm drawer. You slaver it on hardtack and chew like you're punishing yourself. It doesn't spoil because nothing alive would want to eat it in the first place. On very special occasions, someone opens a can of peaches. These are sacred. The guy who gets one guards it like treasure. You trade boots, bullets, even cigarettes for a spoonful. The syrup is liquid gold. The fruit inside is barely real, but it tastes like a memory of better days. Sometimes you close your eyes and forget the mud for 10 seconds. Then someone elbows you, and it's back to the grey. Rations are inconsistent. Sometimes you get plenty. Sometimes you share. Sometimes you eat whatever you can scrounge from someone else's pocket. A stray biscuit. A piece of chocolate smuggled from a Red Cross parcel. You savour it like it's the last real thing on earth. Because out here, it kind of is. You're told to eat fast. Always. Artillery doesn't care if you're hungry. You never know when the next shell will drop. 1 minute you're chewing beef jelly, the next minute you're ducking for cover and wearing it. You keep your mess kit clean, not for hygiene, but because you might be eating off it again in 20 minutes. Or someone else might be, if things go badly. Cigarettes are currency. Food is survival. Water is luxury. Clean water anyway. You're given canteens, but refills are inconsistent. You drink it in sips, like it's holy. Because it is. The water truck comes less often than it should. When it does, there's a line. A fight. Sometimes you're issued a purification tablet to kill whatever's swimming inside. Sometimes you just hold your nose and hope. The food doesn't sit well. It clogs you up, or runs right through you. There's no in-between. Diarrhea becomes a normal part of life. You don't even flinch anymore. You just dig a quick hole, pray it's not near a rat nest, and deal with it. The medic gives you chalk tablets. They don't help. Nothing does. Spoilage is common. If a crate of rations sits too long, the cans bloat. You tap them, sniff them, gamble. It's not just hunger anymore. It's Russian roulette with meat. One guy got food poisoning so bad he hallucinated and tried to climb out of the trench yelling about biscuits. They had to hold him down for hours. And still, you eat, because you have to. Because your body demands fuel, even when everything tastes like metal and mildew. You don't complain, not out loud, not anymore. Complaining burns calories, and you can't afford that. You start fantasizing about food, real food, pies, fried chicken, butter. You'd kill for butter, thick slices of white bread, jam, bacon that sizzles instead of oozes. You talk about it like it's a long-lost lover. Everyone has a story, what they'd eat first if they made it out. A home-cooked meal, a proper drink, a table even. But instead, you get another helping of cold stew. You pick out the bones, ignore the smell, and chew until it goes down. Then you wipe your hands on your coat, rinse your mess tin with a splash of filthy water, and stash it in your pack. Because tomorrow, you'll do it all again. And the food isn't going to improve. The only thing that changes is your tolerance for how much worse it can get. Sleep is a theory, a suggestion, a rumour passed between men who vaguely remember what it used to feel like. Out here, you don't sleep. You collapse. You shut down. And even then, it's temporary. Your bane is a narrow strip of wood nailed into a dugout wall or the wet floor of a bomb-proof shelter, which is neither bomb-proof nor shelter. If you're lucky, you have a blanket. It's damp. It smells like 50 other men and some rat pee. If you're unlucky, you wrap yourself in your coat and try not to think about what's crawling in the lining. You don't remove your boots. That's a rookie move. If something happens, and something always happens, you want your boots on. You want to be able to run, or climb, or dive face first into a shell crater with both feet somewhat attached to your body. So you sleep with them on. You sleep in your uniform. You sleep holding your rifle. You sleep like you're still under inspection. There's no schedule. Sleep comes when it can. 20 minutes here, 10 minutes there. If you get an hour, it feels like a miracle. You're assigned rest periods, but they overlap with watch duty, work detail, or some emergency no one saw coming. You try to nap during lulls in the shelling. Sometimes the lulls are long enough for dreams. Sometimes they're long enough for someone to sneak up and kill you. You weigh the odds and nap anyway. The trench is always loud. Always. Rain on the roof. Water dripping from sandbags. Rats squeaking. Boots squelching. Men groaning in their sleep. Then there's the artillery. the distant rumble that never really stops. It's like thunder that doesn't remember how to die. Even when it's miles away, your brain keeps it close. And when it's not miles away, when it's landing on the next trench over, it becomes your lullaby. You flinch. You wait. You count the seconds between whistles and impact. You stop caring. Eventually, your nerves dull down to static. Someone always snores. Another guy grinds his teeth. Someone else mutters full conversations in his sleep. Sometimes in English, sometimes not. You listen because there's nothing else to do. Your body's too tired to stand. Your mind's too alert to rest. You lie there, staring at the wooden beams above you, wondering how long it'll take for them to collapse. There's no concept of day or night. The trench doesn't care. You operate on a system of shifts, rotations, and vague guesses based on the sky's mood. If it's dark, you work. If it's light, you work. If there's a pause in orders, you sleep. That's the pattern. Dreams are a mixed bag. Sometimes you dream of home, soft beds, warm sheets, clean hands. Then you wake up with your face in mud and your fingers still gripping your rifle. Other times you dream of explosions and wake up screaming, only to realise nothing happened. Or something did, and now everyone else is screaming too. There's no blanket big enough to make this place feel safe. No corner dark enough to forget where you are. Some guys build little barricades of sandbags around their bunks, not for protection, for privacy. As if a stack of dirt can keep the war out of your dreams. Lice keep you company. They nest in your collar, your waistband, your scalp. You scratch in your sleep, leaving red lines up and down your arms like someone's been trying to claw their way out. You wake up bleeding, itchy, and more tired than you were before you closed your eyes. The cold is its own kind of enemy. Your breath fogs the air, even underground. You curl into yourself like a question mark, trying to conserve warmth. You share body heat with anyone who doesn't snore too loudly. Pride isn't a thing here. Comfort is currency. You learn to sleep elbow to elbow with someone you barely know, just to keep your fingers from freezing off. Then there's the watch schedule. Everyone takes turns. You stand at the edge of the trench with your rifle, watching a darkness so complete it feels solid. You listen for sounds that don't belong. You look for movement where there shouldn't be any. And you fight your eyelids like they're the enemy. Falling asleep on watch isn't just against the rules. It gets people killed. You, them, everyone, so you stay awake, or try to. You come off watch and fall asleep standing up, or while eating, or mid-conversation. You dream with your eyes open. You see flashes that aren't real. Hear footsteps in the silence. Some guys start sleepwalking. One tried to climb out of the trench in the middle of the night, half asleep, thinking he was back home feeding chickens. He almost made it. A sniper made sure he didn't. Medics don't prescribe sleeping pills. There are none. Just aspirin, foot powder, and the occasional cigarette if you've got something to trade. You smoke before bed because it helps take the edge off. The edge never really goes away, but sometimes it gets dull enough to close your eyes without bracing. When you finally get a real break, what they call rest behind the lines, you find a barn floor or an old barracks. Lie down on something that doesn't feel like death, and sleep for 12 straight hours. When you wake up, your back is broken and your mouth tastes like metal. But for a few moments, you almost feel human again. Then they send you back. You go willingly, because there's no choice. You know the cot waiting for you is damp. You know the man in the bunk above you is probably snoring through his nightmares. You know there's a leak in the ceiling that drips directly onto your foot. But you go anyway. Because this is war. And in war, sleep isn't rest. It's just the pause between terrible things. There's a new sound now. A sharp hiss. A pop. A muffled thump that doesn't quite match the usual percussion of artillery. You've heard it before, but not like this. Not this close. The guy next to you looks up. Then someone yells it. Gas! Your body responds before your brain does. You lunge for your mask. It's in the pouch on your chest, where you were trained to keep it. Your hands are shaking, stupid, slow. You yank it out, fumble with the straps, pull it over your face just in time to see a pale yellow cloud rolling across no man's land like poison fog sent by a spiteful god. It burns your eyes through the lenses. Not directly, just the threat of it. You blink, and they sting. You breathe through a rubber hose, sucking air that tastes like rubber and desperation. The filter is old, probably defective. You hope not. You're not alone. All around you, men are doing the same dance, mask on, goggles fogging, fingers trembling. Some scream. You hear coughing already. Someone wasn't fast enough. They're on their knees now, hacking so hard it sounds like they're tearing their throat open. The gas doesn't kill quickly. That's the worst part. You've been warned about chlorine, told it attacks your lungs, turns air into acid. The stories sounded exaggerated. They weren't. You see the guy collapse. See the way his body convulses. The way green foam bubbles out of his mouth and nose. You turn away, not out of pity, out of fear it might happen to you next. Gas doesn't care who you are. It doesn't discriminate. It seeps. It slides. It curls through the trenches like it's looking for holes in the earth to punish. It finds them all. Low spots fill first. Then the dugouts. Then the foxholes. Doesn't matter how deep you are. If it finds you, you breathe it. And once you breathe it, you're done. Some of the masks don't seal. Too old, too cracked, too rushed. One man's mask strap snaps as he tightens it. He rips the whole thing off, claws at his throat, and falls over twitching. You step back, heart pounding in your ears so loud you can't hear the rest of the shelling anymore. It's just you and the hiss and the distant sound of someone trying to scream through foam. Later, you'll find out it was phosgene, not chlorine, even worse. Smells like freshly cut grass at first. A lie. It waits before it hits. Lures you into breathing deep. Then the coughing starts. Then the blood. Command says keep your mask on. Doesn't say how long. Doesn't say when it's safe. Just until further notice. You wear it for hours. The straps dig into your face. Your breath fogs the lenses. You can't see straight. You can't hear right. Everything sounds like it's underwater. You start to sweat under the rubber. Your chin itches. You can't scratch it. You think about removing the mask just for a second, just to feel human again. You don't. Others do. Some because they think the gas is gone. Some because they don't care anymore. Some because they panic. You hear the hacking start again. You tighten your mask. You taste bile. Eventually the wind shifts and the air clears. You're told to remove your gear, slowly, carefully, like the gas might come back if you make too much noise. You do. Your face is red from the straps. Your hair is soaked. You take one breath and it burns your throat anyway. Residue. That's the word they use. You drink from your canteen. It tastes like tin and nerves. The bodies are gathered after. Some dead. Some half dead. The half dead are the worst. They wheeze. They beg. Some don't speak anymore. Their voices are gone. just wheezing sacks of lungs trying to work through scarring. You don't look them in the eye. You can't. They saw it coming. They felt it inside them. That's not something you can shake off. You check your mask again that night. 3 times. You clean it with your sleeve. You check the filter. The straps. You sleep with it next to your face like a lover you don't trust, but still need. The sergeant says they're working on better protection. You believe him because not believing him is worse. New rumours go around. They've got mustard gas now. Doesn't hit the lungs. Hits the skin. Boils it. Eats through clothes. Leaves you blind, blistered and screaming. You haven't seen it yet, but you know you will. From then on, every shift has a new kind of tension. You don't just listen for shells now. You sniff the air. You don't trust breezes. Fog makes your spine twitch. The wind picks up and you reach for your mask automatically. You sleep with one eye open and one hand on the pouch. One morning the cook drops a tin can and the hiss it makes as it rolls has 10 men scrambling for their masks. No gas, just reflex. You all laugh, nervously. Then no one laughs. You dream about gas. You dream you're underwater. Drowning? But the water's green and it's crawling down your throat. You wake up choking on dry air. Your lungs still trying to escape your chest. You tell yourself it's just a dream. Your lungs disagree. Gas isn't a weapon, it's a message. We don't want to kill you fast. We want to kill you slow. We want to scare you. We want to teach you not to breathe. And it works. You don't notice it at first. The change is slow, subtle. It creeps in between the barrages, during the quiet moments that used to be restful. Now they're just long enough to let your brain catch up to everything you've been pretending not to feel. Shell shock, that's what they call it, makes it sound like something that happens all at once, like a thunderclap or a fuse blowing. It doesn't. It builds. One loud noise at a time. One flash. One scream. One more second of surviving something you shouldn't have. It starts with the twitch. That little flinch when a board cracks, or a rat scurries behind you, or someone drops a canteen. You laugh it off. Everyone does. Then it happens again. Then you start ducking when nothing's coming. You drop your spoon mid-bite when a boot scuffs behind you. You sleep with your hands clenched. You grind your teeth until your jaw locks. Your nerves are always 5 seconds ahead of your body. You don't talk about it. Not out loud. Not unless you want to get labelled. There's no sympathy here. No therapy. No, how are you feeling? Just get back in the line. If you break quietly. Somewhere no one can see it. Or hear it. Some guys stop talking altogether. Others won't stop. Endless muttering, repeating names, dates, orders. One guy starts crying in his sleep every night. Another stares at the wall during chow and doesn't blink. When asked what's wrong, he says he can still hear the shell that hasn't landed yet. You learn to live with the noise. Not just endure it, live in it. The constant thunder of artillery, the whistle and crash. You learn which ones are incoming, which ones are outgoing. You learn how to tell by the pitch, the speed, the way the air moves around you. You know when to duck, when to brace, when to say nothing and just wait for the blast. But even when the guns are quiet, the noise stays. You hear it in your head. The echo, the pressure. Your ears ring all the time. You stop noticing. Until you do. Then you can't unhear it. A high whine, like your own brain screaming to get out. The worst part is the anticipation. Not the blast itself. That's over in a second. It's the waiting. The seconds between the whistle and the hit. the silence before the ground shakes. That space becomes a whole separate reality. Time stretches. Your heart feels like it's trying to run ahead of the shrapnel. You think every breath might be your last. Then it's not. But the next one might be, and the next. You've seen what happens when it gets worse. A man who curls up in the mud during bombardment and won't stand again. He clutches his helmet like it's his mother. Rocks back and forth. The medic sedates him. They carry him out. Another guy pulls out a clump of his own hair without noticing. Keeps repeating, "I'm fine, I'm fine." He's not. He won't be. You remember them when you feel the tremor in your hands that doesn't go away. You tell yourself you're just cold. You tell yourself it's nothing. You know better. There's no treatment. No name for it that isn't whispered like a curse. If you collapse from exhaustion, you get water and maybe a few hours off. If you collapse from fear, you get written up. If you scream in the middle of the night, you get shaken awake, then told to shut up. You learn to be quiet even when your brain is burning. You've seen officers lose it too. They're not immune. One lieutenant spent an entire morning crawling around his dugout with a pistol, convinced Germans were hiding in the floorboards. Another just stopped issuing orders. Stared out at the horizon for hours until someone took his place. You don't hear about them again. They disappear up the chain, or down it. Sometimes you wonder if the enemy feels this way. If the German soldiers are sitting in their own holes, hearing voices, flinching at ghosts, forgetting their own names. You hope they are. You hope someone else understands this madness. Because if they don't, it means you're alone in it. You start recognizing the signs. In yourself, in others, the far-off look, the sudden anger, the tears that come without warning. You start wondering if this is permanent, if your brain will ever come back, or if this is the new normal, jumping at shadows, grinding your teeth in your sleep, mistaking thunder for incoming fire even years from now. The officers say it's all in your head, that it's weakness, hysteria, cowardice. Easy for them to say, standing behind the line. You know what it really is? It's the result of living with death long enough that your mind decides it can't afford to care anymore. So it unplugs or shorts out. You still do your job. You still load your rifle. Clean your gear. Write letters home that say things like, "I'm doing okay and still hanging in there." You smile when you see a photo of your family. You pretend it still means something. Not because it doesn't, but because everything else has gone numb, and you're not ready for that part to go numb too. You go out on patrol. You cross no man's land. You see the shell holes, the shattered trees, the bodies that were never retrieved. And all you can think is, this looks familiar. That scares you more than the gas, more than the bullets, the familiarity of it. Because if this place makes sense to you now, if this noise feels normal, then what happens when you leave? If you leave, there's no single moment when you realise you've become a walking petri dish. It sneaks up on you. Like everything out here, it starts small. A scratch, an itch, then another. You think it's nothing, just irritation from the wall. Then you find a bug. Tiny, white, wriggling. It's not just dirt, it's alive. And it brought friends. Lice. That's your new constant. They live in your seams, your waistband, your armpits, your eyebrows. They lay eggs called nits, which sounds cute until you're picking them out of your shirt collar at 3 a.m. with a bayonet tip. Every man you know has them. No one's proud of it, but no one's surprised either. They crawl on you during meals, sleep, patrols. They don't care if you're on watch. They've got a schedule, and it mostly involves feeding on your skin. You scratch until you bleed. Then you keep scratching. Then you try not to. Because once the sore's open, you've got something new to worry about. Infection. Dirt gets in, then bacteria. You've seen what comes next. Red streaks up the leg. Swelling. Fever. The medic shrugs. He gives you iodine if he's got it. If he doesn't, it's water and hope. The trench doesn't help. It's already a breeding ground. You're always wet. Always muddy. Always touching something that's already touched 15 other sick, sweating bodies. You breathe in mould, fungus, and whatever died under the floorboards 2 weeks ago. There's no escape. The air itself feels thick with germs. You cough, and it sounds like gravel. You hear others doing the same. Then they cough harder. Then they stop talking. Trench fever comes next. Starts with a headache. Then chills. Then your joints feel like they're trying to leave your body. Your teeth ache. Your bones hurt. The fever spikes and drops at random. You hallucinate. You sweat through your clothes, then shiver like you're naked in snow. The medic says rest, as if that's an option. He means find a dry spot and lie down until the fever decides if it's going to kill you or not. Then there's dysentery, that fun little gift from spoiled food, dirty water, and hands that haven't been cleaned since you got off the boat. You feel it in your gut first. Then everything lets go. You sprint to the latrine trench, if there's room. If not, you improvise. You go where you can. Behind a wall, in a shell hole, next to someone pretending not to notice. Your stomach cramps. Your legs go weak. You sit in your own filth and hope nobody's watching. Someone is. It doesn't kill everyone. Just enough that you stop pretending it's mild. You learn not to ask what happened to the guy who was sitting in your spot yesterday. You already know. There's gangrene. That's a favourite. You get a cut. Just a cut. Maybe from a rock, or barbed wire, or a rusty nail holding your dugout together. You clean it, sort of. Wrap it in whatever's available. Then it starts to smell. Then it turns black. The medic looks at it, makes a face, and tells you to keep it dry. You can't. He gives you morphine if he's generous. Otherwise, he gives you a stick to bite while he cuts the flesh away. Sometimes he's too late. Then it's amputation. No operating room. No anaesthesia, unless you count the bottle of brandy someone smuggled in. They hold you down and do what needs doing. Then you scream for a while and try to forget how many toes you used to have. Your skin never dries. Not really. It cracks, peels, turns red and raw. Fungus grows between your toes. You don't even know the names of half the rashes you develop. You invent them. One guy's got something called the itch, like it's a local weather pattern. Another guy's covered in boils. No one touches him. He doesn't touch himself either. Not that he can without pain. You used to be able to smell yourself. Now you've adjusted. That's the worst part. The smell hasn't gone. You've just stopped noticing it. You stink of sweat, mildew, decay. Your breath smells like bad stew and rot. Your boots smell like they could peel paint. Your blanket is its own ecosystem. You're not clean. You're just too tired to care. Your teeth are rotting. Slowly. Quietly. There's no toothbrush. No dentist. You rinse your mouth with water when you remember. Some chew tobacco to kill the germs. It doesn't work. The molars go first, then the gums swell. Then there's the abscess. Your jaw throbs so hard you think it's artillery. You press your tongue against it and nearly pass out. Eventually it bursts. You swallow the pus. No choice. You wipe your mouth, taste blood, and go back to digging. Because you still have work to do. There's always work to do. Some days the disease kills you slower than the bullets. Some days it gets help. A man with a fever gets hit by shrapnel. The medics don't bother trying too hard. He wasn't going to make it anyway. You start wondering what you'll die from. Not if... what? Will it be a bullet? A shell? Or some microscopic thing swimming in your canteen water? You start hoping for the fast version. A clean shot. Something with no aftermath. Because rot doesn't just happen in your body. It happens in your head. In the way you stop flinching when a man collapses. In how you sleep next to someone wheezing and don't bother waking them when they stop. In the way you shake lice out of your collar and just mutter little bastards like it's a routine. You're decomposing in real time, piece by piece, toe by toe, layer by layer. But you're still standing, still breathing, still able to load your rifle and march when told. And that apparently counts as being alive. Writing home is an assignment. You're not told directly, but it's understood. You write. You say you're okay. You say things that won't worry your mother, or make your father stop talking at the dinner table. You censor yourself before anyone else does. The government doesn't need to cross things out. You've already done it. There's a kit, paper, pencil, envelope. It's all a little too clean, like it doesn't belong here. You sit on a crate or a plank or whatever isn't soaked through. And you stare at the blank page, trying to remember how to sound human. Dear mother, you write. Or darling, if you have someone waiting. Then you freeze. Because how do you describe this without making it real? You talk about the weather. It's been raining. But that's okay, you write. You've learned to stay dry. That's a lie. You haven't been dry in weeks. You talk about the food. It's filling, you say. That's another lie. It fills the space between your ribs, sure, but only just. You mention the boys. We're keeping our spirits up. You don't say that one of them died in his sleep yesterday, and no one noticed for hours. You don't mention the rats, or the lice, or the man who screamed until his voice broke when the gas hit. You don't say that you've forgotten what your own voice sounds like when it's not whispering. You don't talk about how you dream about boots and mud and your own funeral. You write about the sunsets. You say they're beautiful here. They're not. You don't look at the sky anymore. Looking up gets you killed. You say you miss home. That part's true. But you don't describe it. You're afraid if you do, it'll feel like another world. And you're not sure you could handle that. Mail goes out in batches. You drop your letter in a canvas bag along with hundreds of others and hope it gets there. Sometimes it takes weeks. Sometimes months. Sometimes it never arrives. The front moves. Mail gets lost. The guy carrying it gets shelled. There's a system, but it runs on chaos. Incoming letters are different. They're real. Untouched. Full of the world you left behind. Your mother writes about the garden. The neighbours. She says she's proud. She says be safe. She tells you to pray. You stare at her words like they're from another species. Your father writes shorter letters. Fewer words. More weight. You're doing your duty. Stay strong. You try. You want to be the son he thinks you are. But the you in his mind wears a clean uniform and walks tall. The you sitting in this trench hasn't stood up straight in days and smells like old meat. If you're lucky, there's a photo tucked inside. A baby sibling. A dog. Someone smiling. You stare at it until you've memorised every wrinkle, every fold, every face. You fold it back carefully. You keep it in your pocket. Not for comfort, for proof. Then there are the letters from girls. Sometimes it's a real sweetheart. Sometimes it's a pen pal. Sometimes it's someone you barely knew who writes like you shared a lifetime before you shipped out. You read those slower. They talk about dances, about school, about missing you. You smile when you read them. Then your smile fades, because you know you're not the same person they're writing to. Censorship is a quiet thing. Officially, you're not supposed to describe positions, strategies, casualties. Unofficially, you avoid saying anything close to the truth, because what's the point? No one back home would believe it. You can't describe the way blood smells after 3 days in the sun, or what it feels like to step over someone you knew and not even pause. You don't tell them about the man who wrote to his wife every day until a shell took his head off while he was mid-sentence. His letter was still in his lap. You don't tell them about the body that surfaced during the last rain, face down in a trench wall, eyes wide open. You don't mention that the smell won't leave your nose no matter how much you smoke. You start writing less. The first few weeks you wrote often. Now it's once a week, then every other. Then maybe just when the sergeant reminds you. Because it's hard to write about nothing. And harder to lie again. When a letter arrives from someone else's family, and that someone isn't here anymore, the officer reads it first. If it's harmless, it's passed around. One guy got a letter from his wife a week after he died in an ambush. No one knew what to do with it. They read it in silence, then buried it with what was left of him. Mail call becomes ritual. You wait in line. Names are shouted. Half go unanswered. Sometimes a letter comes addressed to a name you don't recognise. That's normal. Replacements come and go like rain. Sometimes a guy gets 20 letters at once. Sometimes none. The guy who gets none always says he doesn't mind. Everyone knows he does. When you do get mail, you don't open it right away. You hold it. Feel the paper. Feel the weight of something clean. Then you read it slowly, dragging the moment out like it might stretch all the way back to wherever it came from. There's a kind of guilt that comes with reading those letters. They're full of things that still work. Normal life. People waking up in beds, going to church, eating real meals. You want to be there, but you also don't. Because if you left, you'd be leaving the only people who understand what this is. Sometimes you write to families of the dead. He was brave. He died quickly. He didn't suffer. You write those words with hands that tremble. You make them sound good. Clean, noble. You leave out the screaming, the smell, the way no one could look at the body. You sign your name and try not to think about what lies you'd want told if it were you. You start to wonder if the letters you send home are doing any good, if they're helping, or just making people imagine things worse than the truth, or better than it. Either way, they can't picture it right. You barely can. Still, you keep writing. Not because you want to, but because it's something to do besides waiting to be replaced, broken, or buried. It's the one thing you can still control. The words. And if they're not true, at least they're yours. The word comes down the line. Orders. Not the usual kind. The clean your rifle, dig a ditch, stay alive kind. This is different. An operation. A push. A planned offensive. The big kind of stupid. You don't hear the plan first. You see it. Officers huddled over a map, like it's going to explain how to rearrange hell. They mumble, point, draw lines. They talk about flanks, objectives, artillery windows. No one mentions the mud, or the fact that half the men listed on those charts haven't eaten in 2 days and haven't slept in 3. They make it sound organised, coordinated, smart. It's not. Eventually the plan trickles down to you in the form of instructions barked by someone who definitely didn't make them. Advance at dawn, take the trench, hold position. No details, no reasoning. Just a direction and the assumption that you're capable of fulfilling it while being shot at from 3 angles and walking through barbed wire. You prep like you're going somewhere important. Check your rifle, load your gear, tie your boots tight, write a letter just in case. You pack light. There's no room for anything that won't stop a bullet or keep you breathing. You look at the guy next to you. You both know one of you might not be standing there tomorrow. Dawn comes, or something close to it. A grey blur. The kind of light that shows just enough of the world to remind you it's about to end. Artillery kicks off first. The softening up barrage, supposed to break the enemy trenches. In reality, it mostly turns no man's land into soup and convinces the enemy you're about to do something dumb. Then comes the whistle. There's always a whistle, like it's a sporting event. A referee calling you out into a field where death's already waiting with a grin. You climb the ladder 1 foot at a time and haul yourself over the top, into the open. And then nothing. No cover. Just mud, wire, craters, and the impossible hope that you won't catch a bullet in the next 5 seconds. You move fast. Or try to. Your legs feel like they're running through glue. Boots stick. Your rifle bounces on your shoulder. You hear nothing but gunfire, screaming, and the distinct hiss of incoming shells. Somewhere out there is the objective. A trench, a hill, a cluster of trees that looked useful on a map, but in reality is just a charred pile of splinters. You don't question it, you just keep moving. 1 step, then another. A guy beside you goes down, doesn't scream, just folds. You don't stop. You don't even look. You can't. You hear someone yell for help. Then another shell lands. There's no more yelling. You drop into a crater when you see the machine gun. It's a head, tearing into the line like a scythe through wheat. You fire back, but it's blind. Panic fire. You don't see the enemy. Just flashes. Just death happening somewhere you can't reach. You wait for the next move. It doesn't come. No follow-up plan, just hold the position. What position? You're in a hole. Your ears are ringing. Your stomach is trying to escape. You're bleeding from somewhere, but you don't have time to check. Eventually, someone shouts to pull back. You don't argue. You crawl, slide, stumble, dive back over the lip of your own trench and land hard, gasping like you've been underwater. You don't remember most of it. Just flashes. Just the sound. Just the look on the face of the man whose helmet you're still wearing, because yours flew off halfway through. Later, you hear about the casualties. 20%. 30. More? No one knows for sure. Someone says it was a success, that you gained ground. You look around at the faces of the men who came back, and wonder how anyone could call that success. You didn't see the enemy, just muzzle flashes. You didn't take the trench. You barely saw it. You didn't hold ground. You held your breath. And somehow, this counts as a mission complete. You start to understand that the plan never mattered. Not really, it's paperwork. Theatre. Someone far from here drew an arrow on a map and decided it should mean something. And you, the men in the mud, you're the ink that fills in the margins. Replaceable, erasable. They'll do it again tomorrow, maybe the day after. Same plan, different names, same result. The officers will report the movement. The politicians will declare progress. The generals will award a medal to someone who died face first in a puddle of his own blood. And you'll sit in the trench, cleaning your rifle, listening to the new orders come down, wondering if next time the plan will include not dying for nothing. You already know it won't. It starts the same way as before. An order. Prepare to advance. It sounds official, rehearsed, like someone somewhere still think war is made of lines on a blackboard. But everyone in the trench knows what it means. Not in theory, in blood. The target is vague. Some rise in the land. A ridge. A nest. Maybe a crater the brass decided to call strategic. It doesn't matter. What matters is that there's a machine gun out there, probably several, and you've been told to run straight at them. The logic doesn't hold up under any kind of daylight. You're not flanking, not surprising, not infiltrating. You're walking forward in the open like someone forgot how bullets work. The higher-ups call it overwhelming pressure. You call it what it is, a mass execution with marching orders. There's a final head count, a few nervous jokes. Some guys smoke like they're trying to finish a pack before the bullets start. Others are quiet, just checking their boots, their laces, their gear, like neatness might keep their body parts together once the shooting starts. And then, just like that, the whistle. Always the whistle. It sounds too cheerful for what it means. You go over the top again. Mud slipping under your boots, your rifle slung, hands out for balance. The world opens up. No cover. Just emptiness and eyes watching you from the other side. You know they're there. You can't see them yet, but you feel it. Like walking into the light of a train you can't dodge. Then the sound starts. The machine gun has a rhythm, a mechanical certainty, like clockwork. Except this clock cuts men in half. The first volley hits the front line. Men fall without even yelling. Just gone. The second line, yours, keeps moving. Because if you stop, you get it from behind too. Your boots catching a root, or maybe a corpse. You don't stop to check. You keep running. The mud grabs at your ankles. Your lungs burn. You fire your rifle without aiming. Everyone does. You know the bullets won't hit anything. It's just instinct. Or denial. Maybe both. The line thins, fast. You trip again, this time on something that used to be a person. It's red and cloth and bone and gone. You crawl into a shell hole and suck in air that smells like metal and damp soil. It doesn't matter. The machine gun's still firing. You can hear it behind you too now. Another nest you didn't know was there. Crossfire. You've seen diagrams, maps. They never look like this. No one puts a screaming man on a chart. No one draws in the wet chunks of uniforms stuck to barbed wire. No one explains how you're supposed to climb a hill when the ground is slick with things you can't name out loud. Still, the order is forward. Always forward, like forward still means progress. Like it's not just a longer walk to your own burial site. So you move again. Crawl, sprint, fall, shoot, repeat. A guy next to you gets hit, not killed, just dropped. He clutches his stomach and moans like something primal. You reach to pull him. You think maybe you can drag him back. But there's no back. You're in the middle of it now. So you keep moving. He screams your name. You don't turn around. You're not even aiming anymore. Your rifle's just there because it's habit. You couldn't reload if you tried. Your hands are shaking too badly. You dive behind a log that's more splinters than wood. Another man dives next to you. He says something. You nod. You both know it doesn't matter. And then, a whistle again. Another one. No, this is them. German. They're sending a flare. A signal. Incoming. Artillery starts. It's theirs this time. Your side's still behind, trying to coordinate. You're too far ahead. So now you're stuck between the guns and the guns. You move again. Or try to. Something hot scrapes past your shoulder. You drop. You check. Blood. Not bad. Not bad enough to stop. Just bad enough to know you're next if you don't keep going. You hear someone yelling to fall back. Finally. But no one knows where back was anymore. The field is just noise and smoke and metal. You crawl. Then walk. Then run. You jump into a trench that looks familiar but smells wrong. It's new. Enemy. You freeze. Then you hear English. Not Germans. Another unit. Lost like you. Everyone's lost. Eventually the gunfire dies down. You don't know how long it's been. 10 minutes? An hour? A lifetime? You count heads. Not names. Just heads. There aren't many. You recognise maybe 4 of them. Later, an officer says the assault disrupted enemy fortifications. You nod. You don't say that the only thing disrupted was your ability to sleep with your eyes closed, or the fact that you watched a man get torn in half by bullet spaced 6 inches apart. You get new orders, a patrol tomorrow, another advance next week, more plans drawn by hands that never touched a shovel or spent an hour under fire. And when you hear machine gun, your body goes cold. Not fear, not quite, just memory, muscle memory. Because next time, you already know what it'll feel like. The weight of your gear, the sound of men falling behind you, the taste of blood in your mouth from running too hard. You get one more night, you sharpen your bayonet, wipe your boots, count your rounds, and somewhere in your head, you start writing the next suicide note. Because when they say charge, they're not asking you to win. They're asking you to die trying. You don't feel it at first. Getting hit, that is. There's no cinematic fall, no dramatic scream. Just a jolt, like someone slammed you in the side with a bat. And then warmth. You touch your ribs or your leg or your arm, and your hand comes back red. Not dark movie red. Real red. Arterial, bright, alive. You stare at it for a second longer than you should. Then instinct takes over. You drop. Crawl. Find cover. Or someone pulls you behind something, yelling words you don't really register. The sound starts to fade in and out. Not because it's quiet, but because your brain is suddenly working on other priorities. Like staying conscious. If you're lucky, someone throws a field dressing at you, or ties one on. Not a medic, just another guy. He presses down, and you scream. Not words, just a sound. Your ears ring again, but this time it's from inside your head, so the medics come when they can. They're not what you imagine. White coats and stethoscopes. These guys are covered in mud and sweat. Some don't even have proper gear. They carry bandages, morphine if there's any left, and a look that says they've seen this too many times today. They drag you to a dressing station. Not a hospital, not even a room. Just a pit, maybe a tent, maybe a wooden shack half a mile behind the line. You're laid on a board, or the floor, or just propped against something that won't tip over. The pain starts to catch up. You ask for something, anything. Morphine, a bullet, a drink. They check the wound, rip the fabric away without warning. You howl, then you bite your sleeve to keep from screaming more. Someone else is already screaming nearby, and they don't want the chorus to grow. And they say it's not fatal. You should be happy. You're not. Because not fatal means not dead. Yet. It means surgery, it means knives. It means holding still while someone sticks finger into your body to fish out a piece of metal that doesn't belong. There's no anesthesia. Maybe a shot of morphine if they have it. If not, they just go in. You're held down. Maybe 2 guys, maybe more. One holds your shoulders, one holds your legs. The medic leans over and mutters something that sounds like, "This will be quick." And then it's not. The knife goes in. You try not to move. You try not to scream. You fail at both. They dig. Pull. Swear. You can't see, but you can feel everything. They find the shrapnel, or most of it. They cauterize the wound with a hot piece of iron or a chemical you don't recognize. The pain is its own colour. You pass out. Or maybe you stay awake and just wish you didn't. They wrap you up tight. Gauze, if there's enough. Cloth strips, if there's not. Sometimes nothing but pressure and a prayer. There's no clean here. Nothing sterile. If the wound gets infected, and most do, they'll scrape it out again later. Same method. Fewer apologies. You're moved to the rear. That's what they call it. Could be a church converted into a field station. Could be a barn. Could be a wagon. You lie in rows with other broken bodies, some missing limbs, some missing eyes. One guy screams all night about his hands. He still has them. He just can't move them anymore. There's no privacy. You piss in a bucket, bleed into the straw under you. The flies come fast. So do the rats. Nurses exist, but not in the numbers you imagined. Most are volunteers. Young, pale, tired. You don't ask their names. You won't remember them. They won't remember yours. You develop a fever. They check it once, say something about infection, and leave you with a cup of water. You drink it slowly because if you drop it, no one brings another. You sweat, shake, wait. You lose track of time. Someone dies 2 bunks over, and the body isn't moved for hours. If your leg's mangled, they amputate. Sometimes above the knee, sometimes below, always fast. No time for slow cutting. They don't wait for consent. If you can't scream loud enough to stop them, it's assumed you'd want it done. The saw makes a noise you never forget. Afterward, they dump the limb in a pile. You see it once, by accident. A stack of arms and legs, muddy boots still on some of them. They cover it when visitors come, like it changes anything. Recovery is slow. If you can stand, they send you back. If you can't, you get moved further behind. Maybe even a hospital in a town, if one's not already rubble. Some men fake being worse off. Some fake being better. Depends on what they fear more. Dying here, or going back out there. You hear about blighty wounds. Injuries bad enough to get you home, but not bad enough to kill you. A bullet to the foot. A clean slice across the shoulder. Some men dream about those. Some make them happen. You think about it once. Then you remember what field surgery is like and change your mind. If you survive the wound, survive the infection, survive the transport, then maybe, just maybe, you get a metal pin, a stitched up scar, and a medal no one will ever see. You get to wear a bandage and limp like proof that you did something brave, or stupid, usually both. Then if you can hold a rifle again, you're patched up, saluted, and told you're fit to return to duty. And that's when you understand. In this war, survival is just another way of suffering longer. The army doesn't care if you're tired, or bleeding, or limping on a leg held together by stubbornness and gauze. You salute. You stand when told. You follow orders like they still mean something. Because discipline isn't optional. It's law. And out here, law comes with consequences that don't bother hiding behind paperwork. There's a hierarchy, and you're not near the top. That's clear from the moment you're handed your uniform and told to shut up and march. Every rank above you has more power than sense, and more rules than logic. Some of them believe in the rules. Others just enjoy watching you fail to meet them. You call them sir, even when they don't deserve it. Especially then. You salute when they pass, no matter how full your hands are, or how many hours you've been digging in the rain. Miss a salute? That's disrespect. That's undermining authority. That's 2 days' rations docked, and a shouting match in front of the whole line. Uniform out of place? Shirt untucked? Boots not polished? Yes, polished, in a trench. Prepare for a lecture that lasts longer than your last sleep. Cleanliness, they say, is next to godliness. You're surrounded by mud, blood, rats, and lice. But God forbid your buttons aren't fastened. You march when ordered. Stand at attention when someone too pay grades higher walks past. Doesn't matter if your knee's shot or your bandage is leaking through your trouser leg. You straighten up. You show respect. Because the alternative is correction. And out here, correction can come with fists. Corporal punishment is alive and well. Not officially, of course. No one writes it down. But you mouth off to the wrong sergeant, and you'll be doing push-ups in crater water until your arms stop listening. Some officers like to make examples. That means public dressing downs, forced labour, and in a few cases solitary confinement in a box so small you can't lie down or stand up fully. They say it builds character. It mostly builds resentment. There's the matter of insubordination. That can mean anything from disobeying an order to hesitating when asked to charge straight into machine gun fire. You don't argue. You don't ask questions. You nod. You move. You fake confidence until your boots leave the ground. Discipline is about the chain. One man at the top, passing commands like hot coals down the line until they land in your hands. You're not allowed to drop them. You carry the orders out even when they're wrong, because discipline isn't about right. It's about obedience. There's roll call, always. Rain, gas, bombardment. You still line up when told. You answer to your name like it matters. Some names are never answered. They get called anyway, just in case. One guy shouted, "Here!" for a buddy who died the night before, just to avoid the paperwork. The sergeant didn't notice, or didn't care. Leave your post, even for a good reason, like a collapsed lung or a sniper, and that's desertion. You'll be arrested, court-martialed, maybe shot. No warning, no defence, just a rule that says you were supposed to stay. There are actual executions too. You hear about them. Sometimes you see them. Soldiers lined up at dawn, rifles raised, shooting a fellow soldier for cowardice. They call it justice, example setting. You call it murdering someone who finally cracked under pressure that would have flattened a tank. But again, not your call. You're expected to report others too. That's part of the discipline. If someone's drinking too much, sneaking off, stealing rations, you're supposed to tell. Some do. Most don't. The line between loyalty and betrayal gets blurry when everyone's just trying to survive. There's a rumour that an officer shot a man for falling asleep on watch. Not official, not recorded, but everyone repeats it in a whisper. Whether it's true doesn't matter. The message does. Don't screw up, don't relax, don't forget who's in charge. Sometimes the punishments are more creative. One guy lost his helmet during a shelling. Not his fault, blown clean off. But it was neglect of equipment. So they made him dig latrines for a week with a broken shovel. in full gear, while being shouted at by a private younger than his little sister. You start to internalise it. The stiffness, the rules. You salute without thinking. You refer to everyone by rank. You stand at attention when your body's begging you to slump. You say yes sir before your brain finishes processing what you're agreeing to. You dream of marching, of standing in line, of inspection. You wake up panicking because your boots aren't where they're supposed to be. You sleep with your rifle, not because you're afraid of attack, but because if it goes missing, the punishment will outlast the war. Sometimes the officers mean well. They're scared too, trapped in the same mud. But fear doesn't excuse stupidity. And stupidity is contagious. One bad order, and discipline becomes a death sentence. You follow it anyway. Not because you trust them, not because you believe in the cause, but because disobedience is punished now. Belief? That's optional. Obedience isn't. And if someone above you says jump into fire, you don't ask why. You ask if they'd like you to salute before you burn. You expect to be shot at by the enemy. That's the part they warn you about. That's the basic deal. You wear this uniform, and people on the other side of the mud try to kill you. Fair enough. What they don't tell you is how often it's your own side pulling the trigger, or messing things up in other, quieter ways. Let's start with friendly fire. Stupid name. There's nothing friendly about it. A shell lands too short. A burst of machine gun fire rakes across the wrong trench. A flare goes up too early and exposes your whole squad to a sniper's gallery. The line between mistake and disaster is razor thin, and no one seems to know who's holding the razor. You've seen men die because someone wrote a 7 that looked too much like a 1. One patrol moved too far forward and got bombarded by their own artillery, called in by an officer with the wrong map. When the dust cleared, the survivors were too mangled to even blame anyone. Not that it would have mattered. Your trench gets shelled. Again. Nothing new. Except it was supposed to hit the Germans. Someone miscalculated the coordinates. That someone, you later find out, is still behind the lines, sipping tea and drawing new arrows on a board. Meanwhile, you're scraping what's left of a guy off your boots and trying not to scream. Then there are the patrols. Nighttime missions into no man's land where everyone's trigger finger is extra twitchy. Half the time you're praying not to run into the enemy. The other half, you're praying your own guys don't shoot you on the way back in because they mistook your shadow for someone else's. Shout the wrong password or stumble at the wrong time, and someone from your own unit will put a bullet in your chest without blinking. Better safe than sorry, they'll say. Sometimes you wonder if they even care who gets hit, as long as they can say it wasn't them. Then there's propaganda. Theirs and yours. Little leaflets dropped from planes or launched in canisters, fluttering down like death's junk mail. You pick one up once, it's printed in English. Your officers are lying to you. Why die for nothing? Your family has forgotten you. Real subtle. You laugh the first time you read one, then you read another, then another. After a while you stop laughing. One of them shows a photograph of a bombed out village labelled your hometown. Another lists casualty numbers, your sides. Higher than you expected. One claims the war will be over soon, but not for you. You start seeing the same slogans scrawled on debris or nailed to sticks out in no man's land. Go home while you still have legs. Someone out there's putting in overtime. The officers tell you to ignore it. They say it's all lies. You believe them. Mostly. But you keep the leaflet anyway. Fold it up, pocket it, just to have something different to read. The betrayal isn't just accidental. Sometimes it's deliberate. Supplies that never arrive. Promises made and forgotten. You were told reinforcements were coming. They didn't. You were told the artillery would clear the way. It didn't. You were told this sector was quiet. Then a week of shelling turned it into a cemetery. You get a care package from home. Inside is a letter saying how proud everyone is. There's also a bar of soap. You haven't had water in 3 days. The soap might as well be a joke. The brass gives medals to men who haven't seen the front. Promotions go to officers who send men into meat grinders, then take credit when a handful crawl back out. A general gives a speech from a safe distance, promising that victory is near. No one claps. No one believes him. You overhear whispers about black market deals, rations being sold, cigarettes disappearing, equipment meant for your unit diverted to someone else's buddies. There's always a reason, always paperwork, never accountability. Sometimes the betrayal comes from closer. A man in your own trench hoarding food. Another stealing boots off a corpse before he's even cooled. One guy fakes an injury to get sent back, and you watch the medic go along with it. Quiet nod, unspoken deal. You don't blame them. You wish you'd thought of it first. Worst of all is when someone gives up. Not dies, gives up. Stops trying. Stops caring. You're sharing a trench with him. You rely on him. And then one day he doesn't lift his rifle. Doesn't duck when the shell lands. Doesn't check his gas mask. Just sits there. And you know if it happens during a fight, he's one more reason you won't make it. You try not to think of it as betrayal. He's broken. So are you. Just not in the same places. You realise over time that war isn't just about fighting the enemy. It's about surviving your own side's incompetence, your officers' delusions, and the 1,000 daily decisions that have nothing to do with honour or bravery. It's about staying alive despite every system that seems designed to grind you down. And when it goes wrong, and it always does, no one's responsible. There's a shrug, a sigh. These things happen. You write it in your journal if you still keep one. Enemy fire is easier to forgive. At least they're trying to kill us. Leave is a word that sounds like it belongs in a different war. A vacation from hell. The lottery where the prize is just being away for a little while. Somewhere you can sit on a chair that isn't damp, drink something that didn't come out of a rusty tin, and see people who aren't falling apart in real time. You dream about it more than you should. You don't talk about it much. Talking jinxes it. Then one day, your name's on the list. No reason, no explanation. Just a chalkboard or a shouted announcement or a sergeant reading it off with no more emotion than if he were listing who gets to clean the latrines. You're going back. Not home, just back, behind the lines. To a place with walls, maybe sheets, real bread if you're lucky. A moment to breathe like a human being again. You don't celebrate, that would be cruel. Especially to the guy next to you who isn't going. Who hasn't had a day off in months. Who might not be here the next time they pull names. You pack fast. Leave what you don't need. Take only what you can carry. Your rifle stays. No need for it where you're going. You walk away from it like it's still a part of you. The train isn't quiet, but it's not under fire, and that's enough. You sit. Your back finds the shape of the bench. Your legs stretch just far enough to remember they exist. You watch the countryside roll past, green and calm, and indifferent. The war feels like a rumour now. For a minute, you let yourself believe it ended without telling you. When you arrive, the smell hits first. Not rot, not mildew, not cordite. Real food. Soap. The absence of decay. It feels wrong. You want to cry or laugh or throw up. You don't. You just stand there, stunned by the sheer normalcy. There's a bath. A real one. With water that stays warm long enough for you to sit in it. You stare at your own body. At the cuts, the bruises, the bones pressing against your skin. You scrape off a layer of grime that's been part of you so long it feels like betrayal to remove it. They give you a clean uniform, or at least one that hasn't been torn apart by shrapnel. You touch it like it's silk. You forget how light clothing can be when it's dry. You walk out into town. People nod. Some smile. Kids run past. You flinch at the sound. Then realise it's just laughter. You haven't heard it in weeks. Maybe there's a bar. A meal that doesn't come in a tin. A cigarette that doesn't taste like it was rolled in gunpowder. Maybe you find a woman who doesn't flinch at the sight of your uniform. Or maybe she does, but hides it better than most. You sleep in a bed, for real. You lie flat, no boots, no helmet, no rifle within reach. Your brain doesn't like it. It keeps trying to brace. Keeps waiting for the whistle. For the thump. For the scream, but nothing comes. Just silence. You wake up 5 times that night anyway. You wonder how many of the guys you left behind are still alive. You don't write them. They wouldn't have time to read it. You think about writing home, but what would you say? It's nice here for now. I forgot what not being terrified feels like. Leave doesn't last. It's a countdown from the moment you arrive. 3 days. 5, if someone up the chain got generous. Then it's back. Back to the trench. The lice. The fear. The noise. You pack again. Slower this time. Not because you don't want to go, but because you know what's waiting. Some guys don't come back. Not because they die, because they run. Desertion. They vanish somewhere between here and the line, try to blend in with the locals, or stow away on a boat. It doesn't usually work. If they're caught, they're tried. Executed sometimes. You understand why they tried. You also understand why others didn't. Now here's the thing. If you're not lucky enough to get leave, there's another kind of exit. The permanent kind. Fast, slow, or somewhere in between. You've seen it all. Bullets, bombs, infection, gas, drowning in mud, crushed by your own dugout. Some guys die in seconds. Others spend 3 days in a cot, coughing up blood, whispering names until they forget their own. And when it happens, when someone dies, the war doesn't stop. Not even a breath. No pause. No silence. Just a name removed from the roll call, and a spot to be filled. Maybe there's a letter sent. Maybe a cross driven into the ground. Maybe just a boot, half buried, that no one dares to pull out because it might still be attached. Death is the only thing that comes with certainty. Everything else is rationed. Food, comfort, time, dignity. But death, they've got enough of that for everyone. So when you get leave, you don't celebrate, you don't cheer, you just count yourself lucky to see something other than blood and wire, even if it's only for a few days. And when you go back, when your boots hit the mud again, you know this much. Next time, it might not be leave that takes you out. Next time, it might be the other option. It doesn't come with a bang. Not this time. No final explosion, no last-minute heroics. Just a message, passed down the line, mumbled between officers who barely raise their voices anymore. There's to be a ceasefire, 11 o'clock. You check your watch. if you still have one, if it still works, a few hours, maybe less, you'd think it would feel like something, like a weight lifting, a moment of relief, a surge of joy. But it doesn't. It feels like being told your sentence is up, but only after they've already broken your legs. The guns are still firing, right up to the last minute. No one wants to be the last man to die, but the orders don't stop just because peace is in the mail. There's still movement, still shooting, still blood. They tell you the war will be over before lunch, but they don't say you're safe. Someone jokes that it would be just your luck to catch a bullet at 10:59. No one laughs. And then it happens. Not a moment, a fade. The guns stop, like a song ending mid-note. The silence is louder than the noise. You feel it in your chest. You don't cheer. You just wait. Like maybe the next shell is still coming, just running a little late. Someone lights a cigarette. Someone else stares at the sky. You sit down, not like a man who's finished something, like someone who's run out of reasons to stay standing. There's no speech, no parade, no handshake with the enemy, just mud and dead bodies, and the smell of months of rain-soaked misery. You're told the fighting has stopped. You look around and wonder what the point of it ever was. No one knows what to do. Clean up, pack up, wait. You half expect another order to come through, telling you the whole thing was a mistake, and it's time to charge again. Officers talk about terms. Politicians talk about victory. You talk about boots and bandages and the guy who didn't make it back from patrol this morning, hours before the ceasefire was signed. He's not a casualty of war. He's a casualty of timing. Mail starts moving again. So, do rumours. You'll be going home soon. Or maybe not. Depends on the region, the paperwork, the whim of whoever's pulling strings you'll never see. Some say it could be weeks. Some say months. One guy says we'll never leave, that we'll just keep marching in circles until someone remembers we're still out here. You look at the men around you. Not a uniform without stains. Not a face without scars, fresh or buried deep. No one's whole. Some are missing fingers, limbs, eyes. Others are missing everything on the inside. You can't patch that with gauze and ceremony. They call it peace. But it doesn't feel like peace. It feels like standing in the wreckage after a storm and realising you still have to live in the ruins. There's a meeting of officers. They talk about rebuilding, restructuring, restoring morale. You wonder what they mean by morale. You wonder when exactly they think they lost it. Probably never noticed. The trenches don't get filled in right away. The bodies don't get moved right away. Some men volunteer to start the work. Others refuse to touch it. No judgment. You either deal with it now or carry it forever. Back home, people are celebrating. Fireworks, bells, toasts, music. You hear about it in letters. It sounds like fiction. Like a play someone's performing far away for an audience that never stepped in the mud. They cheer for victory while you're still wiping the blood from your hands. They'll build monuments, write books, talk about sacrifice, about courage, maybe even glory. They won't talk about what it felt like to dig graves in the rain, or what it sounded like when your friend's lungs gave out one breath at a time. They won't print that part. You get told to stand for inspection, again. War's over, but discipline doesn't take days off. You straighten your uniform, even though it's ruined. You line up. You salute. And you wait. To go home. To find out if home even still exists for you. To see if the noise in your head will ever stop. To figure out what kind of person steps out of a war after walking through it this long. The guns have gone quiet, but silence, it turns out, isn't the same as peace. You make it out. Somehow. With your legs, your arms, your heart still beating. They put you on a train, then a boat, then another train. It doesn't feel like travel, it feels like being shipped. Like cargo. You sleep in fits. Wake up sweating. Stare out the window and try to imagine what it's going to be like, seeing home again. You arrive, a station, a platform, people waving flags and throwing flowers. You blink at the noise. It's too clean, too bright. You've been in the dark so long, your eyes forgot what this kind of light looks like. Someone grabs you. A brother, a mother, a girl you used to write to. They talk too fast. Cry too hard. Say things like, "You made it," and "It's over." You smile. You try to smile. It works for a few seconds, then it doesn't. You walk into your house. Your bed is still there. So is the chair, the picture on the wall, the clock that ticks louder than you remember. It's like nothing changed. Except you. The food tastes wrong. Too soft. Too bland. You find yourself chewing slowly, like you're waiting for grit or bone or the taste of rusted tin. Your hands shake when you reach for a fork. You hide it under the table. You go outside. The street is quiet. No whistles. No boots. No shouting. A dog barks and you flinch. A car backfires and you drop to the ground before you know why. People stare. You stand up and brush yourself off like you meant to do it. You don't explain. At night you lie in a real bed. Sheets clean. Pillow soft. Ceiling whole. You stare at it for hours. Then the dreams come. Not full memories, pieces, sounds, faces, dirt, screams. You wake up drenched in sweat. You stare at the wall until morning. You tell no one. Your friends ask questions. What was it like? Did you kill anyone? Was it scary? You laugh. Shrug. Say, not really. Change the subject. They don't want the real answers. You don't have words for them anyway. You see other men around town, other uniforms. Some with canes, some missing parts. Some like you, trying to look normal in clothes that don't fit right anymore. You nod at them. They nod back. That's all. That's enough. People call you a hero. That word lands wrong. It feels like they're giving you something they don't understand. You didn't win anything. You just didn't die. That's not heroism. That's math. You try to find work. Maybe go back to what you did before. But you don't care about shoes, or machines, or ledgers anymore. The things that used to fill your days now feel like background noise. You fake interest, fake patience, fake the ability to sit still without counting the distance to the nearest exit. Your family means well. They ask if you're okay. You say fine. It's easier. Every once in a while, someone brings up the war, like it's a shared memory. You let them. It's simpler that way. You let them believe it ended when you came home. You go for long walks, alone. You check every shadow, listen to every footstep. You carry a pocket knife, not because you need it, but because your hands feel wrong without something to hold. You don't like crowds, don't like silence, don't like mirrors. Sometimes you hear things that aren't there. The whistle, the shell, a voice calling for help. You blink. It's gone. No one else hears it. That's the worst part. It's just you now. You and the echo. Time passes. You learn to fake it better. The smiles last longer. The panic takes longer to trigger. People say you're adjusting, healing, moving on. You let them think that. You almost believe it yourself sometimes. You keep the letters, the tags, a button from your old coat, not for memory, for proof, that it happened, that it was real, that you survived it, even if part of you didn't. The world keeps going. Shops open, kids grow, seasons change, and you walk through it like a shadow that never quite fits the light. They told you the war would end. And maybe it did. But it didn't end here. Not for you. Not ever. So that's it. Not the war. Not really. Just the part they let you survive. You made it through the draft, the mud, the rats, the gas, the screaming, the silence, the cold discipline, the hot metal, the walking dead, the walking wounded, and the part where everything stopped making sense. Now you're home, or something that calls itself home, with a body that mostly works and a brain that doesn't. You're not the same. You won't be. The uniforms come off. The memories don't. History books will tell you when it started and when it ended. They'll name dates and treaties and battles and numbers, but they won't tell you how it smelled, how it sounded, how long it took to remember how to speak like a person again. They won't tell you what it cost to be a survivor, but you were there, you know. Now try to sleep, if you can.